Guys, Ilia has knocked out Charles Oliveira in round one, making him the 10th fighter in UFC history to win a second belt in another weight class. Pantoja dominates Kai France and submits him via round three. Joshua Van on 3 weeks' notice. Number 12 going up against number 1, Brandon Royval, ends up landing a decision win. Beneil Dariush, ring rust does not exist. After 2 years off, he comes back and beats Renato Moicano via decision. We then have Payton Talbot learning how to wrestle and beats the hottest prospect out of Brazil in the bantamweight division. Let's break down this banger of a main event.
The MMA Exchange.
Alright guys, Ilia Topuria has now KO'd Volk, Max Holloway, and now Oliveira. This is no doubt the best 3 fights back-to-back ever in MMA. So let's look at the start of round one. Round one, Charles pressures forward, lands tape kicks, lands calf kicks, clinches and drives Ilia to the fence with a buddy lock. But like I said in the breakdown, Ilia's background is wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and the kind of wrestling that his background is in Greco-Roman, where it's all body locks. You're not able to use your feet to get any takedown. What Ilia will do is that when Charles tapes or jabs or goes for the straight, he will do this sidestep and then always getting him off the center line. So whenever Oliveira would strike, Topuria would always sidestep, and what that will do is throw off Charles, because Charles always attacks with jabs, tapes, and straights. He doesn't do as many hooks, so that when you're taking yourself off the center line, he's most likely going to miss that shot. Now, what Ilia was doing good is that whatever strike he threw, even if it was just the jab, it was a power jab. He'd lean his whole body forward and then throw a jab, maxed impact on Charles' face. You see already within the first 2 minutes of the fight that Charles was already being cut and bruised around the face. Oliveira was doing good with the leg kicks. Ilia did a great job at feinting, and whenever Ilia feinted, it would trigger this high guard from Oliveira, and then Oliveira would think, oh wait, a strike isn't actually coming, open the guard a little bit. As soon as the guard was open, Ilia would then land a strong jab. And then after that, whenever he'd land a clean jab, he'll then try and throw the jab to the body, because then Oliveira will resort back to the high guard, exposing the body, and that's when he'd be able to land the jab. Now, with the KO sequence, Oliveira fakes the jab. Ilia knew that it was coming. Oliveira faked the jab, went for the straight. Ilia saw this, sidestepped, like I was earlier in the round, and throws a clean right hook, then a left hook, and completely drops Oliveira. Now, I thought Charles was dead, bro. The way that he dropped was the most brutal loss ever. Charles Oliveira, that was his worst loss ever. He's never lost like that before. So, Ilia Topuria, a guy from featherweight who is lighter, comes up into a heavier weight class and absolutely flatlines the second best lightweight, who was Charles Oliveira. The first is Islam Makhachev. After that, Pimblett stepped into the cage. But to be honest, that isn't the fight to make. Pimblett has a win over Michael Chandler. Who cares? Justin Gaethje, he keeps saying that, the loss to Holloway was just an exhibition match and that he saved UFC 300, so UFC owes him a title shot. No, you literally just beat Rafael Fiziev, who, you don't really deserve it, man. You've just come off a win against Fiziev. That was on 12 days' notice. If anything, I know that we have a bit of issues with Arman Tsarukyan, but Arman also has a win over Charles Oliveira. He has, out of the top 5 now, the best case for a title shot. He was the backup opponent. He did make weight. Dana White did say that that isn't the fight to make, because Arman needs one more fight. But look, I think it should be Arman Tsarukyan versus Ilia Topuria. But yeah, look, Ilia is on track to being like one of the GOATs, man, because you beat the two featherweight GOATs and now the second best lightweight, of our time, of this current era in the lightweight division. Man, this guy, I think, gives Islam the toughest test. If you want that, Islam and Topuria fight to happen, what you need is, or what you're rooting for is Jack Della to win, and then that forces Islam to go down to 155 because he just lost, and then we get the fight. In that one, I actually think that Ilia Topuria will knock out Islam Makhachev because Dustin Poirier fight where Islam got rocked. We saw in the Volk fight that he got dropped in the last round. Man, Topuria packs the most power out of anyone in featherweight and lightweight. So that's the risk that I think that Islam has as well. And plus, if he loses to JDM, we're talking about Islam, his chin, I think, would be weaker because JDM would land a lot of punches. He has power, JDM does. And I think that he will do a lot of damage to Islam. And if that happens, then he goes back down to lightweight. I think that's the prime opportunity for Ilia Topuria to get a knockout over Islam Makhachev. But let's move down to the co-main. So in the co-main, we had Pantoja versus Kai Kara France, and round one was dominant from Pantoja. Takes Kai down right away. He had the striking to match Kai, which I said in my prediction video. And Kai was thinking a lot about the takedown, and I know that he was thinking a lot about the takedown because whenever he was getting his striking off, he'd almost like bob his head down, sort of anticipating a takedown that wasn't actually coming, and he'd sort of play with his mind a little bit. Like he always kept ducking so low. Pantoja isn't like these Russian or Georgian wrestlers. He's not grinding you against the fence. He's not going for takedown after takedown after takedown and then finally gets you down. It's like, doesn't matter in what way he's on the ground, he's going to snatch a submission. He's going to, angle himself and sort of sweep himself to try and get you back. He is a technical maestro on the ground, and at flyweight, that is very powerful. He has the striking because everyone's so scared of getting taken down by him. It allows him to open up his striking on these fighters who call themselves strikers. Kai Kara France comes from CKB. In New Zealand, the main sport for combat sports is kickboxing. He's been doing kickboxing since he was in high school. And this guy that started in wrestling and jiu-jitsu had better striking than him in the fight, all because of the takedown threat. That is very important. Pantoja's a gamer, man. He always goes for the sub. He always tries to go for ground and pound. He doesn't stall. I mean, look, I did criticize him a lot with the Steve Erceg fight, but because, Steve Erceg was the Aussie fighter, I had to support him. And in that fight, it was a bit shitty, But yeah, look, in round two, this is what was funny. Pantoja said that he had a brand new strength and conditioning coach, and he's the best that he's ever felt. Round two, he slowed down so much, and that's when Kai was able to get some shots off. But he kept ducking so low, anticipating that takedown. Got the fight down to the ground, and I'm getting a rear naked choke, and that's all she wrote. I was actually thinking after that fight, crazy to think that Erceg was the closest ever to beating Pantoja in Pantoja's title run so far. And then now look at where Erceg is. He's coming off a loss to Kai Kara France, and before that lost to Pantoja. So, but yeah, look, I think now he has 6 or 7 wins over the current top 10. Very underrated, and I think he should be 5th in pound for pound rankings, because having him at where he is at now, I think he's like between 7 and 10. He's somewhere around there. I think that's way too low. Number 5, he has, I think he has the most wins out of anyone in the top 10 out of the champions. So that's interesting. After that, Joshua Van steps into the octagon to do a face-off. Crazy. Now, fucking hell, Joshua Van and Brandon Royval, man. It was a 3-round fight, and I know that Joe Rogan was saying, "Oh, this should be a 5-round fight because it's for the number 1 contender." But bro, you wouldn't get this level of fight if it was a 5 round fight. If it was a 5 round fight, it would have been played way more safe. Round one, we see Joshua Van open up with clean combinations, 1-2s, and whenever Royval is stepping in for a strike, we see Van land a counter left hook. He was pacing up Royval, even though that Royval is the longer and taller striker. Van was just able to get in and not throwing one punch and then disengage. It was three shot combos. So, Royval can, slip one, slip two, but the third would catch him. So, and that kept happening over and over again. And when they went back into the corner, Royval's corner said he's catching you with the left. Be more aggressive. In round two, we saw Royval be much more aggressive, was putting Van on the back foot. But then also Van was countering. Like, it was such a close round. I did give it to Royval, so I had it 1-1 going into the third. And what Royval did better in round two was that he was pressuring more and he was throwing more combinations, throwing more jabs, because in round one compared to round two, he was more passive. Round three comes and it was such an even round. And I think what got Van round three was the last 30 seconds of the fight. He lands a clean shot that drops Royval. And I was surprised that it's like how much shit Van was able to land on Royval. The last 30 seconds is when he drops him. And I think Royval knew he lost because it was like everything was so close. But then as soon as he got dropped, Van started to land some ground and pound, attempted to finish the fight. And that was, I'm not even kidding, top 10 best fights ever in UFC history. The power that Van was throwing, combined with the accuracy that Royval had, the jabs and all that kind of stuff, was just amazing. No wrestling at all, no grappling. Who I think will win against Van and Pantoja? I didn't see anyone beating Pantoja at this point. I mean, Royval, has a chin. He is known for his chin. So look, and it got cracked. Joshua Van was the one to crack it. So maybe we do see Pantoja in a vulnerable position and Van being able to drop him and maybe end up, winning a TKO. But I just think the grappling and the submission threat of Pantoja, combined with how strong of a chin he has, will be enough to get it done. But I also have to mention the height. Now, Van is small for flyweight. Like, if there was an atomweight division, I feel like he'd go to atomweight. And his center of gravity is much lower. I always think about this when Volk went up to fight Islam Makhachev, because in that fight, Volk's build, it's like he can be on top of you doing ground and pound, but even if he stands up, the distance difference between him on his knees on the floor versus him on his feet isn't that much of a difference. And that's because he is shorter and he is stockier. So I'm thinking, what happens if that, translates to Joshua Van versus Pantoja, where if, somehow he ends up in top position and is able to land some ground and pound and mix it up a little bit. But look, for now, just off the top of my head, I would go with Pantoja. Then, guys, we had Renato Moicano versus Beneil Dariush. Dariush, after 2 years off, beats Moicano. An important takeaway from this fight was Beneil's ability to land the calf kicks. And it was the jab. In round one, it was the calf and the jab that made it, for Beneil. Until Renato, towards the end of round one, lands a clean straight that drops Beneil Dariush. Renato tried to finish, but it wasn't enough. Round two, Benny opens up with a takedown. Beneil Dariush opens up with a takedown and has great positional awareness, has great points of pressure, good control. The ground game was amazing. Round two was quite easy. Beneil Dariush has that Iranian wrestling background, so he's. But then Moicano has that jiu-jitsu, but because the pressure, the way that Beneil was able to position himself, how he was able to maneuver on the ground, and when he got back up, how he was able to return it onto the floor, Renato would get to a knee, Beneil would move position and then drag it down to the floor. So a very, very smart game plan. Round three, Renato was tired because all that grappling, all that work of trying not to get Beneil to take you down, you get your hooks in underneath the armpits, and you put all that tension on your bicep, and the lactic acid buildup, on the side of Renato Moicano was just too much for him to handle going into round 3. And you know what's crazy? Like, it's crazy. They had 2 training camps for each other. When Islam Makhachev was meant to fight Arman Saryukian, he was, he pulled out because of a back injury. Renato Moicano steps in. He was meant to fight Beneil Dariush on that card. So I was quite shocked to see in round 3, Renato's trying to, get his striking off, but his punches are so withered. They're so slow. They're so predictable. Beneil saw this coming and mixed in the takedown straight away. So he was really smart. Landed a few body kicks. Beneil did. Renato just didn't have anything, man. Like, it was actually quite a shame to see, because I was looking pretty hyped for Renato Moicano, because besides the Islam fight, which was 24 hours notice, he was riding a 4-fight win streak. So, look, Renato at 36 years old, can he make a comeback? Can he change his fight style? Will we see a different version of Moicano the next time he steps in the cage? I don't know. Some people are saying Beneil Dariush versus Fiziev, which I think is a good fight, but I think Fiziev should go to featherweight. I've had this opinion for quite a long time, because the size, even though, Fiziev does make 155, he makes it easy. His size isn't much of an advantage. It's actually a disadvantage. Now, I know that you're going to say, look, in his last fight against Ignacio Bahamondes, a really tall, rangy striker, but I'm not comparing him to Bahamondes. I'm comparing him to the top 5 of the division, and I think even Oliveira, after getting knocked out by Ilia like that, would give Fiziev a really tough test. Justin beat him twice. Fortunately, I don't think he wins against anyone in the top 5. So I think he should go down to featherweight. I think what should happen is Beneil Dariush versus Dan Hooker, and my early prediction for that fight would be Beneil Dariush, just because the speed of Dan Hooker isn't where it needs to be for the lightweight division. We saw how quick Beneil Dariush was in his fight against Renato Moicano. But yeah, Dan Hooker needs a fight, but not too high up the rankings. I think Beneil Dariush is good. And guys, the opener of the main event, Payton Talbot versus Filipe Lima. Talbot has improved his grappling like tenfold. Using Granby rolls, scrambling well, angling himself, and not overcommitting to anything. Felipe was doing well in round 1 and was landing clean. He was landing well in round 1, and really capitalized on the straight. So he'd fake the jab, then land a clean straight. He did that for quite, he did that 3 times, I think, within the span of 2 minutes or something like that, which was good. But then he just resorted to grappling. And I was just so confused. I'm like, man, you're doing well on the feet. It's not like, you're getting overwhelmed with punches or you've been rocked or dropped. But, like, I just think that he didn't show good fight IQ. And if your grappling is failing, like, who gives a fuck, man? Your striking was giving Talbot the difficulty. But I'm not sure. Maybe he went to his corner and said that the power of Talbot was just too much for him. I'm not sure. And he wanted to grapple with him, I guess. Maybe he didn't feel confident within his striking. But, like, he was doing well in round 1 because it was combos. It wasn't just one shot, But, yeah, the only time that Felipe did well was in round 1, because in round 2 and round 3, he'd be overcommitting. Talbot would switch up, and then he'd be on top, landing good strikes. He even landed a good spinning kick within round 3, spinning heel kick that landed quite clean. But he was just trying to land, Filipe Lima was just trying to land one punch at a time from round 2 onwards. So, made a lot of mistakes, put himself in vulnerable positions in the grappling and on the floor, and at times overcommitting, and Payton just ended up on top, had the better striking, and was more positionally aware and used better fight IQ. Compare this fight to his Ronnie Barcelos fight. It was a completely different fighter. His grappling has elevated so much, and I am excited to see who he fights next. He did call out Adrian Yanez. I think that is a great fight for him. I think it's a little bit of a step down in competition, to be honest, because I really rated Filipe Lima, the hottest prospect out of Brazil in the bantamweight division. But yeah, look, so for the main event, I went 3 out of 5. I picked Felipe and Renato, but then I picked Van. I'm not sure if I said decision. I have to look back. I put Pantoja by sub in round 3, and I did have Ilia by knockout. Now, a quick rundown of the prelims and early prelims, top to bottom. Feature fight of the prelims, we had Gregory Rodrigues versus Jack Hermansson. Jack was doing well, and Gregory Rodrigues has a lot of scar tissue around his forehead, and we see that open up very early in round 1, so that was pretty good for Jack. Jack was on the back foot, but he always kept his distance, and within 30 seconds of round 1, finishing, Rodrigues landed a clean left hook that KO'd Jack instantly. Now, this is where shit gets fucking controversial, bro. Herb Dean, you fat fuck, bro. You have fighters that just, that as soon as they land a shot, bro, it's over. Herb Dean had such a delayed reaction to the left hook that knocked out Jack Hermansson that Gregory Rodrigues stood there, looked at Jack Hermansson, saw that it was out cold, and just went down and landed another fucking bomb. And then Herb Dean tugged at the hips of Gregory Rodrigues, and that's how the fight stopped. That's bullshit, bro. Herb Dean, you have a fucking, duty of care for fighters within the cage. Yeah, I know that these guys are UFC fighters and the rules are do not stop until the ref tells you to stop. But at the same time, Jack Hermansson did not get up off the floor for another 5 minutes. He was cold for 5 minutes. He looked dead. He looked fucking dead. And that second punch, I think, is what did it, because it was a clean hook and then another big shot. Now, on the post-fight press conference, Gregory Rodrigues said, look, I don't care. I keep fighting until the bell is over. And if Jack Hermansson was in my position, he'd do the same thing. I don't think so, bro, because some fighters actually have control. Some fighters know that you're out. And people are saying, oh, but the adrenaline rush, you don't know when the fight is out. But there was a pause. It was like the hook landed, Jack Hermansson dropped and was fucking lifeless. And then there was a pause, like a 3-second pause or 2-second pause, and then he went for the second punch. So I think that's bullshit. But Gregory Rodrigues, great fight. He did get cut quite early in round 1 and then came back with a strong knockout. Before that, we had Hyder Amil versus Jose Delgado. I picked Jose, and he got it done. 26-second knockout with a standing knee that landed so fucking clean. He KO'd Hyder Amil stiff. Jose had that speed. He used the knee within a punching combo. Great work from Jose Delgado. He snaps the undefeated 11-0 Hyder Amil, and I thought, and I picked Jose. Previous to that fight, we had Viviane Araujo versus Tracy Cortez, and in this fight, it was Tracy's wrestling. Now, Viviane has a BJJ, has a black belt in BJJ, but that didn't do shit, bro. Viviane didn't do anything of significance to Tracy Cortez. I had it 30-27 to Cortez. She was able to land some ground and pound and nullify anything that Viviane was trying to do. Towards the end of the fight, after round 3, Viviane Araujo, she shoved Tracy Cortez out of frustration and then made the excuse that Tracy put oil in her gloves. Bro, I swear these Brazilians are salty as fuck, man. How the fuck does it make sense if I'm going to put oil inside my gloves? That would fuck around with the positioning of my gloves and make them slip and all that kind of stuff. So I reckon that's bullshit. I just think that Viviane Araujo got frustrated that she couldn't do anything to Tracy Cortez, and she just tried to find an excuse. Good job from Tracy Cortez. Before that, we had Terrance McKinney against Viacheslav Borshchev. Terrance finally has fight IQ, bro. He actually uses his brain. He lands a submission win within less than 1 minute. Borshchev, I think, will get cut from the UFC. No ground game. I don't think he's a true MMA fighter. Like, he's a kickboxer that ended up in the UFC. Like, no ground game. And I'm really glad that Terrance McKinney studied this fight. He knew that there was a massive, massive weakness within the grappling of Borshchev and went for it. Ended up getting a very easy submission. And I picked Terrance McKinney to win. Before that, guys, this was in the early prelims. Niko Price versus Jacobe Smith. Jacobe Smith is still undefeated, now 11-0. Round 1, he went all out and ended up gassing himself out because in round 2, it was not looking well. Niko was starting to land shots. Jacobe ended up getting the fight to the ground. And Niko, like, is nowhere near top UFC competition. Like, he's past his prime. Like, he got knocked out by Robbie Lawler, an aged, withered Robbie Lawler. I think, like, if I'm Jacobe's manager, I'm picking his fights very carefully because, you know, it wasn't good that in round 2, it was looking quite dicey for Jacobe. He ended up getting the fight to the ground, ended up getting a submission win. Good job, Jacobe Smith. But against a low-level, competitor like Niko Price, it wasn't too impressive. What was the least impressive fucking performance was Jhonata Diniz versus Alvin Hines. Heavyweight is the shittest division in MMA, bro. Like, the fuck is this shit? Alvin Hines started training MMA 4 years ago. Jhonata Diniz is a glory-level kickboxer. He was the first Brazilian kickboxer in glory, okay? Now, think about that. Alvin Hines took this motherfucker to a decision. How does he take him to a decision? Like, you are a world-class kickboxer. You have this random guy that's only had 7 MMA fights in his whole life. He steps in on 10 days' notice. And he takes a world-class kickboxer to a fucking decision. Like, at this point, I'm telling my 18-year-old brother who's shorter than me to gain a shit ton more weight, become a mini sumo wrestler, and go into the heavyweight division because even my brother could fucking become a top 10 heavyweight. And he doesn't even train, bro. Anyway, guys, that's it for the video. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments. This card was a great card. I reckon 8.5 out of 10. Like, subscribe, turn the bell notification so you get notified for any future videos. And let me know your thoughts in the comments, guys. Thank you for watching.